talks about every game.
Back in the day, demos were a lot more important. In a time before the internet made learning about new games a trivial thing, you would rely on these small bite-sized experiences to tell you if a game was worth buying or not. Demos really hit their peak with the PlayStation 1. You'd subscribe to a magazine and get a demo disc with every issue with a selection of demos to try out. What made these demos really special at the time was that a lot of these games hadn't actually come out yet, so there was the thrill of being able to play the game early. Of course, this meant a lot of the time there were beta elements in demos that wouldn't appear in the final release, which is cool on its own. You can still have fun popping in a demo for a game you know back to front and spotting all the differences compared to the final game. But there's one small downside to releasing a demo for a game that hasn't released yet: the potential that a demo would get you excited for a game only for the game to be cancelled, with the demo remaining as the only way to experience the game. This, admittedly, didn't happen often. Games wouldn't really see a demo release until very late in development, when the game was like 90% done, and it's pretty rare for a game that far along to get cancelled so close to the finish line. But it did happen. And so that's the topic of today's video: every game that had a publicly available demo and then never came out. And yes, it has to be a publicly available demo. If a demo of a game was playable at E3 or a convention or something, but wasn't available to the general public, then it doesn't count. Also, this is only going to be for demos of games that were planned to have a physical release, so it excludes fan mods and fan games. Not that I want to exclude them, more like I have to, because if I didn't, then this video would be 50 hours long, because this sort of thing happens way more often in the fan community. So yeah. And despite the show being called Every Game, I actually doubt I found every game this applies to. I did my best to research this, but I'm sure there have to be some examples I missed, so if you know of one that isn't in this video, then feel free to let me know. Maybe if I discover enough of them, I'll make a sequel to this video. You all ever heard of a film called Titan AE? Odds are good that you haven't, because it was a box office flop. Released in the year 2000, it's notable for being the last film Don Bluth ever worked on, the main guy behind films like A Land Before Time and The Secret of Nim. It had a massive budget and then flopped hard at the box office, causing Fox to close down the animation studio that made it, and possibly being the reason Don Bluth never made another film. You might be confused as to why I'm talking about a 2-decade-old animated film. Well, if you just used your head, you would probably theorize that there's going to be a demo of a video game adaptation of this movie that then later didn't release. There was a demo of a video game adaptation of this movie that then later didn't release. It was being developed by Blitz Games, a now defunct British game developer known primarily for making licensed games. They made 2 Biggest Loser games and also made the Burger King Xbox games, if you know about those. Development on the Titan AE game began in March of 1999, while the film was still being made. The game was set to release on the original PlayStation and PC. And here's the demo for the PlayStation. It got its own disc and sleeve. I could not for the life of me find out how and where these demos were distributed, which doesn't rule out the possibility that these demos were manufactured and then never officially handed out, which would ruin the premise of this video, so we'll just ignore that reality. As such, I also couldn't find out when exactly these demos were made available, but thanks to a debug menu that I'll touch on later, we know this build was compiled on May 30th, 2000, which gives us a rough timeline. The next month, on June 16th, the film would release, and then sometime in July the game would be cancelled, citing the film's box office failure as the main reason. Apparently the game was only a few weeks away from being finished when the plug was pulled. Before we dive into this demo, I suppose I should actually watch the movie to get some context, so I'll be right back. One Titan AE later. That was... okay. First of all, the film's visuals are amazing, blending CGI and hand-drawn animation. There are certainly points where the CGI looks very dated, but most of the film actually holds up really well and still looks stunning today. The story is where it falls apart. It's a very generic story with generic characters that doesn't do anything too interesting. There's certainly a massive ambition here, but that only comes across with the stunning visuals and a thought on what this movie could have been with a better story. Oh, and it has a great soundtrack too. But overall, due to the lackluster story, I'd say this film is okay, completely middle of the road. I'd say if you're a fan of animation or an aspiring animator, then this movie might be worth one watch, but I certainly never plan on seeing it again. I give it a 5.5 out of 10. Oh wait, I talk about games, not movies, so let's dig into the Titan AE demo. The first thing you see after the usual logos is a PS1 quality FMV trailer for the movie, which has the song Higher by Creed playing in it. This trailer is so early 2000s it's actually amazing. I can't play the song for you for copyright reasons, so I'll have to improvise. Won't you take me higher? Alright, we have 2 levels to play in the demo, an on-foot level and a spaceship flying level. Let's do the explore level first. Select character. Oh, Akima is not available in the demo. Well, that's for the best, I think. She looks like if one of the Spice Girls started melting. I guess Kale isn't much better. He looks like a mannequin that's been given life. Loading. For some reason, Kale here has an expression like, "Bro, did you just fart? Ugh, not cool, man." Also, this is the most clinical progress bar I've ever seen in my life, taken right off the measuring cup. And now we have control over Kale and... oh no, oh dear god no. The controls are horrible, so delayed and so slippery, and the camera too, you can't control it at all and it does a poor job of showing you where you're going. The way you climb things reminds me of Tomb Raider, but honestly that game has better controls than this. Also, the music is just a song from the movie's soundtrack playing on loop, which isn't too bad because the song is nice, but because it has the lyrics it gets annoying a lot quicker when it's looped. Oh god, I have to get into a fight. Yeah, this is clunky as all hell. You can lock on, block and punch and that's it. I mean it works, but man it's not fun. Okay, gotta climb these boxes. Just... come on. There, finally. So I can swing on bars. Good to know. Oh, come on. Alright, let's try again. There we go. Oh, really? Now you're having a laugh. Could you go any slower? 50 years later I make it to the other side and... oh, there's a box blocking the switch to the door. Well, that's a problem. I see no other solution to this other than to go back on the goddamn monkey bars. Okay, so you go to the right and jump over here to get a wrench that you can use to break the boxes. Cool. Loading. Alright, another fight. The last one was super easy, so I think I'm dead. Oh no, the demo completely ends when you die. Now I have to start from the beginning, oh god. Alright, I did it, I'm back. And this time I'm gonna use that wrench as a weapon. Wow, that was a lot easier. Yeah, that death was totally my fault. I think in my brain I filed the wrench under the things I used to break boxes, and I just didn't consider I could bash someone over the head with it. Breaking some boxes. Oh, a blaster. Yeah, this doesn't control great either. You can't aim and move at the same time, and the aiming is inverted. Shoot this, make the green gas go away, and now I'm getting blown by a huge industrial fan. How do you get past this? Has this thing got something to do with it? Oh, I'm stuck. Legit, I'm completely stuck. I'm pressing every button, I can't do anything. Back to the beginning again. Goddamn monkey bars. Oh, you gotta go to this computer to turn off the fan. Alright then, onwards we go. Oh no, it's the dredge. Don't worry, I brought a gun. Oh, they can't die. Lovely. And so from here on the game goes from not fun to not fun and also frustrating. For the rest of the level you will have dredge chasing you that cannot be killed, and of course you're still expected to solve puzzles, navigate a literal maze, and then press 4 switches and jump into a ship, while at least 2 dredge constantly chase you down and fire at you, even more when doing the switches at the end. I barely managed to beat the level with a sliver of health left, saving me from going back to the start and climbing the goddamn monkey bars again. And that's the level completed. Dear god, that was awful. Awful controls, awful camera, awful combat, awful game design with those last dredge-filled sections. But hold on, we've got one more level left to play in the demo, a flying level. Let's give it a shot. Yeah, it sucks. So that's Titan AE for PlayStation, the game that never was. And I'm not too sad about that. Honestly, it's safe to say this game doesn't do the movie justice, which is saying something because it's not like the movie set a high bar or anything. I don't want to say it's a good thing this game didn't come out, because despite the end result, some people did work hard on this game for a while, only for it to be cancelled right before it was finished, making all their work basically for nothing. But I do think we didn't miss out on too much with this one, and it's a good thing I don't have to play any more of it. Oh wait, what was that? What? The entire game, although unfinished, was left in the demo disc game files, and you can play the rest of the levels by using a game shortcode to access the debug menu? No, I'm not playing it, you can't make me. I barely got through the levels they wanted me to try, no way I'm touching unfinished extra levels. But yes, they are there. The developers even made sure to include how completed each flying level was. Not sure if they hadn't started the Titan level yet, or if they had decided not to make it. I have to give thanks to some braver souls than me for this footage of the extra levels. So yeah, if you really want to, you can basically play through most of the game. Proceed with caution is all I'll say. And now it's time to move on to our next game. I'll have Creed play us out. With arms wide open. Wait, that's the wrong Creed song. Now it's time to jump over to Japan. Over there, Sony released a series of demos called Demo PlayStation. These were demos that were sent out to stores that had a PlayStation kiosk for customers to try out the then new console. In April of 1995, Sony released Volume 5 of Demo PlayStation and sent it out to stores. On that disc was a short demo of a game called Bounty Arms, which never released. Before I continue, I need to thank KidFenris.com for writing a blog post about this game back in 2009, which has so much information about Bounty Arms that I couldn't find anywhere else, so I'll put a link to it in the description for you to check out. Bounty Arms was being developed and published by Data West, not Data East, Data West. As far as I can tell, they have no relation to Data East. Data West's game output is nothing but Japanese exclusive games I've never heard of. Their last game was an RPG called Brave Proof for the PS1 in 1998, but they are still around today, primarily working on car navigation software apparently. Bounty Arms was set to be released in April of 1995, the very same month the demo containing the game was shipped out. I couldn't find when it was announced to be cancelled, or even any reason given as to why it was cancelled. Well, I guess it's time to play the demo. Oh boy, Japanese text. I can't read it, but from what I can gather, it's explaining that the demo has some game balance issues that won't be in the final game. I'm sure it's saying more than that, but I don't know what. Alright, time to choose our character, Ray or Chris? Chris? Is that right? Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude, Chris. So the game is a top-down bionic arm 'em up. You kill things by extending your arm at them by pressing triangle, and you can hold triangle to fill up a meter to use your arm as a flamethrower in a circle around you. That's it. You just use the D-pad and the triangle button for this game. Wait, I'm not taking any damage. I'm invincible. Yeah, this is what the earlier screen about game balance was referring to. You have God mode in this demo. You can't die, and even just walking into an enemy will kill them. Because the game lacks a visible health bar at all, it's likely you would have died in one hit, so maybe the developers thought that was too harsh for people trying to enjoy a short demo at a kiosk. So you destroy some robots in a jungle, fight the mid-level boss, and the demo ends. This is one of the shorter demos I've played. You don't even get to play the entire first stage, only half of it. Nice butts though. There's really not much to say about this demo, it's just too short to get much substance out of it, outside of a general idea of how the game would operate. The rest of the first level is still in the files, and some people managed to edit the game's memory to skip the mid-level boss without killing it, allowing you to play the rest of the level. I couldn't find exactly how to do this, so here's footage of PPL Toast playing the rest of the stage. Here we get to see a gameplay feature not present in the demo proper. You use your bionic arm to grapple across pits. And here's the stage 1 boss. Looks pretty cool, and after it's defeated the demo ends again. There are no more stages in the files, so that's the end for real this time. So how's the game? Well, it seems kinda mediocre to me. But again, the demo is so short and only covers what is essentially the game's tutorial, so it's hard to really gauge the quality. It certainly doesn't look bad by any means, and it sounds like they were close to finishing if they were planning to release the game the same month this demo came out. I feel like there's an interesting story here that we just don't know about. Oh wait, it was only 60% done? What? We might as well keep our PS1 demo streak going, so now let's talk about a game called Macross VF-X2, a game in the Macross franchise. Now this game did come out, but only in Japan on September 2nd, 1999, and that might have stung if you were one of the Americans who played an English demo of this game before release in one of your official PlayStation Magazine demo discs. On disc 22 there was an FMV trailer for the game, and then on disc 23 lies the demo in question. It was even rated by the ESRB by this point, rated T. Now I'm not going to talk about the demo itself because this game actually came out. Yeah, only in Japan and in Japanese, but it's never been impossible to play imported games, and the language barrier only means you won't understand the story as the game itself is still playable. IGN announced the localized version on their website, and then updated the article when the game was cancelled. IGN PSX found out in April that Bandai has officially cancelled this game. The reasons were slightly vague, but they appear to stem from legal reasons rather than from developmental ones. Apparently, far too many companies want a piece of the profit from this game, and no reasonable agreement could be reached between them. Bandai is still working on several other titles for the iOS, including Digimon World. So yeah, that's apparently the story. This is the most widespread demo so far, since every subscriber to official PlayStation Magazine was given a disc containing the demo, not to mention the previous issue containing an FMV of the game. I think this game not coming out in America probably disappointed the most people so far, given how many people were exposed to it. Now it's time to go a little more modern, with a first-person shooter called TimeShift. This game also came out, but bear with me. TimeShift was first announced on January 10th, 2005, a time-manipulating first-person shooter to be published by Atari and developed by Saber Interactive. Scheduled for release in fall of that year, it would end up missing that deadline quite spectacularly. The PC version was the priority, along with a planned original Xbox and Xbox 360 port. After missing its first planned release date, the deadline was pushed back to May 2006, and on January 30th, 2006, the first demo would be made available for download on PC and Xbox 360. The demo was plagued with technical issues such as errors when installing and driver conflicts, along with the game seemingly not impressing as much as Atari was hoping for. It looked like they were going to make this new release date though. We had a playable demo after all, and the game had already experienced a long delay. Well, the publisher, Atari, were dealing with massive financial problems, and in an attempt to keep their head above water they sold off some of their IPs to other companies. The very same month TimeShift was set to release, the rights were sold to Vivendi Games. It seemed TimeShift would no longer be releasing that month as planned, as a Vivendi representative stated right after the purchase, "We are going to release the product when it's ready." They seemed to be taking the criticism of the demo to heart, and agreed the game needed more time, something Atari couldn't afford to do. And indeed, the game wouldn't release that month, not even that year. Over the coming months, whenever TimeShift reared its head, it would look more and more different from the game seen in its original demo. Mechanics were simplified, levels thrown out, art styles changed, graphics improved and tweaked, but at the end of it all, the game barely resembled its original incarnation. The game was now targeting a release on the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC, with the original Xbox version being cancelled. In July of 2007, the game's second demo would be released, this time looking much closer to what the final product ended up being. The game finally released on October 30th, 2007, with the PS3 version following a little later on November 19th. The game released nearly 3 years after it was announced, nearly 2 years after its first demo was made available, and a year and a half after the rights were sold to Vivendi. In the end, despite the long development cycle, reviewers seemed to agree that the game seemed rushed, with a short 3 to 4 hour campaign that lacked the level of polish you would expect by this point. I can only infer that Saber were throwing out their work faster than they could replace it, which is easy to believe given how much the game had changed in only a year and a half. It's safe to say that the game's first demo and its final release are basically two different games, meaning that it technically fits the criteria for this video, as it was a demo for a game that never released, even though it shares the same name as the game that did. So why don't we take a look at this demo and see the version of TimeShift we almost got if Atari had held on to the IP. Can we just admire the old logo for the game? It looks way better than the final one, more distinct and recognizable. Here we go, let's get shooting. I think this might be an allegory for something. Whoa, freaky deaky. You can see the texture gets some added detail as you walk closer to it. You can actually see the symbol grow in and out of the wall. Fire doesn't hurt you when time has been paused. Also, photons of light would stop moving, meaning you'd go blind, but we'll just ignore that. So you can slow, pause, and reverse time, for a limited time depending on how full your time gauge is. I don't know if it's called a time gauge, it's just what I'm calling it. It slowly refills when you're not using it. Damn, Detroit looks exactly how I remember it. Ah, stealth section. Good thing I can pause time. Damn it, I think they spotted me. Well, I went back and tried to get past this section without being spotted. I did it, but it seems to make no difference as you have to kill these soldiers right after and it forces you out of stealth, so that was kinda pointless then. This gun is cool, it has incendiary rounds and a flamethrower attachment. Completely overkill, it's great. I like my meat well done. Oh, poop. I like my meat medium rare. There we go. There's this other gun too, not as cool as the barbecue gun. Oh yeah, I can pause time. There's this part where you gotta get to somewhere safe before an airstrike lands on you, so Auto helps with this too. So now there's this switch that opens the gate, but the gate only opens very briefly, so you have to pause time to make it through in time. A very basic puzzle. Crikey, it's the Brotherhood of Steel! Pause time to avoid incoming fire and make it to the door, and that's the end. Demo over. Coming this spring. Are you sure about that? Wait, melee attacks with one T? They spelled it wrong. Well, that's the demo, and yeah, that really didn't light my world on fire. The uses for the time shifting mechanic were just so basic. It's just pause time to avoid detection, pause time to make combat easier, pause time to get through a timed door, and pause time to avoid gunfire. Also the fact there's no reason to merely slow time or reverse time at all in this demo. You basically only pause time, and there's no clever puzzles shown off. Combined with the technical issues people were experiencing, I have no doubt this demo underwhelmed most people. With what seems to be a running theme in this video, there's more of this build of the game out there. Atari sent out a rare DVD to some dedicated users on the TimeShift forums. It's called the single player beta as it doesn't contain the game's multiplayer. It has 7 levels and is nowadays available for download online. I won't be touching it because it's outside the scope of this video, but yeah, it's out there. And I find it very odd for a publisher to give non-journalists basically an early build of the game. But what do I think of the final version of the game? Well, I haven't played it. Activision owns the rights now after they purchased Vivendi and they're still asking $30 for it. The game has a 71 on Metacritic and is 15 years old. You're dreaming, Activision. I would have gladly picked it up for $5. Well, I found some footage online of the area that the old demo started in. The fire you walk through has been replaced by rogue electricity, and after that the level starts to play out very differently. Alright, I think I've talked enough about TimeShift for one lifetime. Let's move on. You ever heard of the NBA? If you don't know, NBA stands for No Burgers After Midnight, Mum Will Get Mad Again. Nose boogers, anyone? Nice buns, Allison. Bake these yourself? It's delicious. Nah, but for real, NBA stands for National Basketball Association, which was founded on June 6, 1946 in New York City. The league hosted its first basketball game. Okay, I'm not going into the history of the NBA. Had you for a second though. We're just here to talk about a video game called NBA Elite 11, a game in the NBA Live series, as you could tell by it being called NBA Elite. Makes sense, right? I'll let IGN explain. Yup, it's official. For the coming season and all foreseeable subsequent titles, NBA Live will be known as NBA Elite. That means for this year's version of EA Sports Basketball, you'll be playing NBA Elite 11. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? Here's EA's official statement on the name change. We knew it was time to leave the past behind. We have exciting and significant changes coming to our NBA game this year that will usher in the future of basketball video games. So outside of the name change, NBA Elite 11 was looking to be just another entry in the annual NBA Live series. The stage was set for another underwhelming sports game release that only NBA fans would dare care about. Yet they got someone like me talking about it, so obviously something interesting happened. The game was set to release on October 5th, 2010, and on September 22nd, EA would release a demo for NBA Elite 11 for download on Xbox 360 and PS3, at first exclusive for Xbox Gold members, then available for Xbox Silver members on the 28th. I just find it weird that they locked a demo behind a subscription paywall for like a week. The demo showed off 2 new features, a brand new control scheme and a brand new glitch scheme.
What the f***? Yo, y'all seeing this? Yo, what the f***? This is standing like Jesus in the middle of the court. Look at this, he's still there.
The demo was filled with glitches. Not only that, but even when the game was working perfectly, people weren't happy with the new control scheme and didn't think the old controls needed changing in the first place. EA would announce a delay for NBA Elite 11 on September 28th, only 6 days after the demo came out and only a week before the game was set to release, even though the game had gone gold already with copies printed and set to retailers, and they gave no new concrete release date. Then on November 3rd, the game was announced to be cancelled, with EA requesting that copies of the game that stores had been holding onto for the past month be sent back to them. Because copies were printed and sent out, some copies did make it out into the wild, either by stores not realizing the game had been delayed, or by employees swiping copies, perhaps realizing the value these games would have. Almost all of them are the PS3 version, with only one 360 copy ever proven to exist. The prices the game goes for is a little out of my price range to say the least, though if you really want to experience the game, I've heard you could find it floating around the 7 seas if you dare to plunder its depths. As you know, for this video it's a demo or nothing, and I couldn't find the demo online anywhere. It was removed from all digital storefronts when the game was cancelled, so it's hard to come by. This is the only game in this video that was cancelled because of the demo, unless you count the original version of TimeShift, I suppose. Also, it's really weird to see a story about a AAA publisher cancelling a game because of its glitches, even when copies were already sent to stores. These days I'd say it's rarer for a AAA game to release with mostly no issues. We've seen time and time again publishers releasing unfinished games and promising to make it better with patches. It's weird that not too long ago EA were willing to scrap a completely finished game due to its bugs. Now if you want to be pedantic, NBA Elite 11 did see an official release on iOS. Yeah, the iPhone version of the game still released as planned, and due to this, Wikipedia calls NBA Elite 11 a mobile basketball game on its page. After the game's cancellation, the series went back to being called NBA Live, going back on EA's word that the series would be renamed going forward, making NBA Elite 11 even more of an odd one out. It's August 12th, 2014, and a new free game has just appeared on the PlayStation Store, called PT. It was set up to appear to be made by an indie studio called 7780 Studios. An indie horror experience for PS4? Some were already hyped. Though it wouldn't be long before the true nature of the game was made known. PT stood for Playable Teaser, and if you managed to complete a series of cryptic steps, you could complete the game and be treated to an announcement that this was Silent Hills, a reboot of the Silent Hill series, being made by Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro, and starring Norman Reedus. To say the internet was hyped would be an understatement. I was there, so I know. People were praising PT left and right, and even though it was just a teaser, people were enjoying it as a game in its own right. Everyone was uploading playthroughs of it, every gaming news outlet and YouTuber would report on any new information regarding Silent Hills. All the while, more and more people downloaded PT to get themselves hyped, as PT would be downloaded over 1 million times in just 1 month. Silent Hills was going to be a massive success. There was no way it wouldn't be. The amount of hype surrounding it was the kind of hype developers and publishers could only dream of, which makes what happened next even more baffling. Konami cancelled the game because they hated a man. The main man behind the game, Hideo Kojima. For some reason they just hated him, on a personal level. They cancelled the game just to spite him. They cancelled a surefire hit that would have made them millions of dollars. They cancelled it to make a single man upset. If you don't believe me, then allow me to explain. Konami is probably the most evil and childish game company around, maybe even worse than EA. At least with EA, you know they're going to do whatever it takes to make the most money possible with no regard to ethics. With Konami, they are willing to throw away millions of dollars if it means they get to be petty, childish, or evil. Money motivates them, sure, but if they hate you, they will burn it all in a heartbeat. Here's a snippet from a translated Japanese article from Nikkei. Konami reportedly monitors the movements of employees with cameras placed everywhere, with particular interest given to how long they break for lunch using time cards. Those that take too long are publicly shamed within the company. The only Konami employees that have their own email addresses are from PR and sales. Everyone else has to make do with randomized email addresses that change every few months. Finally, Konami has no patience for employees they deem useless. shuffling their responsibilities around not only to other jobs within their division, but sometimes moving them out of game development entirely and into working at their patchy slot factories, turning them into security guards, or even making them janitors at their fitness facilities. One of the most incredible instances of this involves an employee posting to Facebook he was leaving the company, and other workers who liked the status found themselves reassigned to one of these punishment jobs. Reportedly, this affects both junior employees and senior staff. Konami began to build resentment towards Kojima, despite him being responsible for some of the company's biggest successes like Metal Gear, along with being at the company for decades and having his hand in so much that they did. This resentment was because his games cost a lot of money, and Konami realized that mobile games cost a lot less and could make just as much money. Konami began to hate console games, and hated Kojima by extension because he was now seen as someone who was making the company spend more money than they needed to. If this sounds like a gross oversimplification of a complicated industry issue about the divide of budgets and markets across two different gaming platforms, that's because it is. It's best to think of Konami as a vindictive child rather than a game company. It makes their actions make a lot more sense. As their resentment grew, they began to make it known to Kojima. They renamed Kojima Productions to No. 8 Production Department, along with cutting off their access to the internet, making it known that Konami hated them, and for as long as they were going to try to do their jobs, Konami would make it hell for them to do so. This made its way to the public when Konami removed Kojima's name from the cover of Phantom Pain. He was still behind the game. Everyone knew he was still behind the game, but Konami got joy from removing his name off something he made. Again, they are a child. The world would see Konami for the child they are when they barred Kojima from receiving an award at the Game Awards.
Thank you very much, Kiefer, for accepting that award. And as you noticed, Hideo Kojima is not here with us tonight, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. Mr. Kojima had every intention of being with us tonight, but unfortunately he was informed by a lawyer representing Konami just recently that he would not be allowed to travel to tonight's awards ceremony to accept any awards. He's still under an employment contract, and it's disappointing, and it's inconceivable to me that an artist like Hideo would not be allowed to come here and celebrate with his peers and his fellow teammates such an incredible game as Metal Gear Solid 5. But that's the situation we're in.
Yes, they forced him to stay home and not attend to receive an award for a game he made. This decision only served to make Konami more hated in the gaming community, and had absolutely no benefit to Konami at all, other than they got to spite Kojima again by not allowing him the pleasure of accepting an award. At this point, Kojima was all but forced to leave the company once work on Phantom Pain ended, which was going to be a problem for Silent Hills as that game was planned to go into full production at that point. Of course, this didn't mean for certain that the game was dead. Konami could still make the game without Kojima's involvement, using the work that had already been done, but if that sounds like it makes too much sense for Konami, then you're right. On April 18th, 2015, the game was announced to be cancelled, and PT would be taken off the PlayStation Store. If you still have it downloaded, then you can still play it, otherwise you can't get it anymore. Kojima left Konami to form his own studio, Kojima Productions, and they released their first game, Death Stranding, on November 8, 2019, collaborating with Guillermo del Toro and starring Norman Reedus. That sounds familiar. Now, I've never played PT and I can't play it. I don't currently own a PS4, and even if I did, I can't download PT anymore. Although I'm not even sure if you can count PT as a demo or not, because we don't know anything about how the final game actually played. It could be that PT features different gameplay and assets from what the actual game would have been. Although I won't ever turn down an opportunity to take shots at Konami, so for this video I counted it as a demo. So I had just recently finished writing the script for this video when I noticed a video appear in my subfeed from a YouTuber I love called Sega Lord X. He uploaded a video about a game called Reloaded, which had a demo on the Sega Saturn, but the Saturn version of the game never actually released. Go check out his video, I'll put a link in the description. It's thanks to him that I'm even talking about this game because otherwise I wouldn't have known about it, and it just proves my thought that I haven't found every instance of this. This is a very obscure topic, so googling only got me so far. We first need to talk about the game Loaded, a top-down shooter developed by Gremlin Interactive and published by Interplay. It was released on the PlayStation 1 in 1995, and received a Saturn version the following year. The Saturn port was good, certainly compromised from the PlayStation version in a few areas, but overall a competent port that did the game justice for the Saturn. The game was a success, enough to warrant a sequel, Reloaded, and it too was slated to release on the PlayStation and Saturn, even appearing on DOS this time around. There was trouble afoot, however. Despite the first game's success and good critical reception, the sequel was getting slammed left and right. Critics pointed out that the sequel was seemingly worse than the original in almost every way. Graphics were a downgrade, with a less appealing art style and less graphical fidelity, and the original game's fast-paced shooting action had been replaced with larger, maze-like levels, with more of an emphasis on puzzles, slowing the pace down considerably. But Gremlin released a demo disc for the Saturn containing Reloaded, giving Saturn owners a chance to play the game for themselves to form their own opinion, so let's see how that went. Mama, bouncer, butch, blah blah blah. If Loaded was twisted, it's just got worse. They literally just come right out and say it. So what do you get when you take a bad game and then make a really bad port to the Saturn? Well, you get a heaping pile of something. It's bad, really bad. The frame rate is terrible here, made even worse by the fact there's no frame skipping. The game has to render every frame no matter what, so when the frame rate dips, it literally goes into slow motion. The game looks terrible with triangles flashing in and out constantly, and to top it off, it's a bad game at its core. This is one of those situations where I have to wonder what they were thinking letting people play this demo. I mean, yeah, it would have let people know not to waste their money, but from their perspective, it would mean a lot less sales. What, I died? I still had health. Well, I think the demo has a timer, as this happened precisely 4 minutes after the demo started. Can't let people have too much fun with just the demo, right? Or maybe it had something to do with this power meter? Maybe it got too full? Who knows? So yeah, that was bad, but luckily the world would be spared Reloaded for Saturn, as this port would never release. All we got was this demo. I couldn't find any statement given as to exactly why it was decided to axe the Saturn version. Likely some sort of combination of the game's poor reviews, poor performance on Saturn, and the Saturn itself being in the midst of its death throes at that point. Reports indicate that the Saturn port was completely finished, copies were sent to reviewers and some had even already published their reviews before the plug was pulled. So it's likely the game went gold, and at the last moment, right before it was too late to turn back, they realized it just wasn't worth it and cancelled the Saturn port. Honestly, it was probably for the best. At least you could still play the superior PlayStation version if you really needed to play this game. And that's it. All instances I could find of demos releasing for games that didn't. If you know of any instances of this that I missed, then please comment below and I'll make a note of it for a possible, maybe, sequel to this video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Try to stay asleep, 'cause I don't wanna leave the comfort of this place. It is my name is Creed, and I've got a song about being higher, yeah.